Hello, good morning everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you to JM Finn for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be introduced as eclectic. I'll try and be that. It's quite easy when you're talking about Donald Trump to be eclectic, I think. The first thing I tend to tell people about what I know about Donald Trump is the TV thing, which is, you've probably heard Donald Trump is described as a reality TV president. You've probably heard reports about how much he watches rolling news. But I think it's hard to overstate or overemphasize how vital the media, social media, and rolling news is to his presidency. It's why, as has been said before, he confuses ratings with polls quite a lot. He can't really distinguish between popularity and being watched. It's why he's obsessed with volume of bills. It's not so much actually the legislation, it's the being there, being seen to sign things on a regular basis that really matters to him. It's the media of it, it's the daily drama, the triumph and disaster every day. It's also why his allies, Britain in particular, have realised that actually talking to Trump through Fox is more important than talking to him in person. Boris Johnson last week went over to try and save the Iran deal, I'm sure you noticed, and he actually was more pleased to have got a slot on Fox and Friends than a slot in the Oval Office. Because weird as it sounds, Trump is more likely to hear you through Fox and Friends. And in case you're thinking this is all fake news, I can tell you, I can't name the TV presenter, but I can tell you I know a Fox News presenter who tells me he gets freaked out because he gets voicemails late at night from the leader of the free world saying, "I love the show tonight. It's your favorite president. Give me a ring sometime." So, I mean, as the world might worry about this, I can't complain. As a journalist, I love it. I said in 2016 that Donald Trump is going to make journalism great again. And I think I'm being proved right. We launched the Spectator USA because there's just so much interest in America at the moment, and we are developing a bigger American readership. That's my plug for Spectator USA out the way. But I also worry, particularly with this website, because of the nature of websites, that I might have a nervous breakdown because Trump can just blow up 5 massive stories while I'm putting my children to bed. And so it's exhausting to keep up with. And what's even more worrying is that I think there's an extremely good chance that we're going to have another 4 years of Donald Trump, and that we will be talking about him as president in 2024. So I thought what I might do is give you some reasons why I think Trump is going to win again. And then, if you're worried about it, I'll give you some reasons why I don't think he will. The first and the biggest reason is the economy. Americans have suffered a lot in the last 2 decades. Poor, ordinary Americans have suffered a lot. And there is now an economic boom in America. Trump, to a lot of people, really is making America great again. The stock market is not doing quite as well as it did last year, but it's still very strong. And it's why Trump has joked, half seriously, I think, that he wants to make his campaign pledge in 2020, how's your 401k doing? And of course the media all sneered and said, oh, they don't realise that he doesn't realise that Trump's poor voters don't actually have 401ks. But actually that's wrong, because the people Trump needs to twist, or the people he needs to turn at the next election, do have 401ks, and they're significantly richer since Trump's been president. Consumer confidence is extreme. Actually, before I said, I'm not sure Trump should take all the credit for this economic miracle. But that doesn't really matter to a certain extent, because in people's minds he is. Consumer confidence is extremely high, sort of 10-year high. You often hear Trump enthusiasts talking about how the Donald is fixing America under the hood. And what they mean by that is usually deregulation, that while the whole sort of media fanfare is going on, he's stripping back American regulation, he's firing up the engine of American enterprise. I think some of that is rubbish, but I think a lot of it may be true. The pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords may be a disaster for the world in the long run, but it's a good thing for the American economy in the short run. He's also got the major tax cut, which I'm sure you probably all know about, but that is obviously going to have a stimulatory effect. I don't think you need to be a supply-side maniac to think that that will improve the economy in the short term. There's also his $1 trillion infrastructure plan, which he hasn't delivered yet, but he will, and that will have an extremely stimulatory effect on the economy. Unemployment is now below 4%, which is huge for him, particularly with his core voter group. There's also going to be a labour shortage, possibly in America. In Wisconsin, companies have started hiring convicts in jail because they don't have enough workers. There's a great irony here that actually Trump might have to relax his immigration policies because he's running out of workers. The big question, I suppose, is will wages go up? This has been the great problem troubling the developed world recently, that wages are stagnant. And there are small indications that this will happen. Walmart, perhaps the stingiest employer in the universe, has increased the minimum salary from $9 to $11, which is quite a significant thing for a lot of Americans. Trump really understands this point. He's promised that wages will go up, and when they do go up, they will go up rapidly, as he says. And this is why I often think that Trump, he's often compared to Nixon or Reagan, but I actually think Trump is a lot like Bill Clinton. Clinton was the last president to see real wages grow, and he saw them grow dramatically, and he hit 60% approval rating in his second term, which is unbelievable, really. And also, just aside from the economics, Clinton has what I like to call dirty dog appeal, which Trump definitely has. And this means that, what I mean by that is the political class can't bear him, they disapprove of him morally, but actually regular Americans quite approve of his fairly disgusting behaviour. You know, just as Clinton drove the moralistic right mad in the 90s, Trump's doing exactly the same to the moralistic left in this decade. And that actually makes him very popular with working class Americans. The next part, I'm going to talk about foreign policy, and this is going to be probably the dodgiest part of what I'm saying. But Trump has said before that he's a stable genius. I think in foreign policy he's an unstable genius. He has a very improvisational style to how he approaches foreign policy. He makes it up as he goes along, basically. But it bears fruit, as we've seen in North Korea. I don't entirely buy the Trumpist line that he's finally ended the Cold War, but I do think that he's created a new reality on the Korean peninsula, and that there now is a possibility of peace where there wasn't for a very long time. A lot of people say that for Trump, it's the pageantry of success, not the substance of success, that matters to him. And that's true, but it's also not really relevant because he can create his own reality, a bit like Reagan did in the Cold War. The other big foreign policy bugbear for him is China. And of course, you'll have seen the tariffs and the talk of a trade war and a lot of freaking out about that. But actually, the tariff issue has been relatively minor so far. And in fact, if you look at how China pressures North Korea, that's in large part to do with their fear of a trade war with America, because they are actually, as Trump often says, more afraid of a trade war than we are. And then the third part of the foreign policy is the Iran deal, which he tore up so dramatically last week. And again, I'm not mad enough to think he knows what he's doing. I don't think he does. I think he's probably just doing the bidding of Israel and Saudi Arabia. And of course, his new national security advisor, John Bolton, who up until quite recently, still wanted to obliterate Cuba. But again, this sort of very dynamic improvisational style opens up new possibilities. It's quite possible that because of this, the Syrian question could start to be resolved. And this was something that just didn't happen under Obama. And that brings me on to the next point, which is popularity. Trump is weirdly popular. A lot of people hate him, but people increasingly like him. His job approval rating is at 43%, which again is about where Clinton was at this time in his presidency. And there is still a lot of, sort of, I call them elite Republicans, Bush Republicans, who despise him. And they will try and stop him if they can in the nomination process in 2020. But they'll probably fail. A recent poll in New Hampshire showed that Trump is far more popular, particularly among Republicans, than he was in 2016. So that's quite interesting and significant. And the point is that America First nationalism, economic nationalism, is popular. People don't like it, non-Americans don't like it, but Americans like it. Voters, in fact, across the developed world, voters see a connection between multilateral trade deals and wage stagnation, and whether, I'm not saying that link is right necessarily, but Trump understands that, and he knows to present himself as the person who can break that link. And that's what America First is about, and that's why it's so resonant. And the last reason why I think he will win is the Democrats, who are in a real pickle. They need to move past the identity politics of the Obama-Clinton era because it's been proved time and again that it doesn't work at the ballot. But they can't seem to do it. They can't seem to reform the working class coalition that always sustained them. Nancy Pelosi recently boasted about how they were going to clear up the House, clean the House, win the House in the midterms coming up in November. And within sort of 2 weeks of her doing that, the Democratic lead in the poll dropped from 16 to 3%. You may have heard a little bit about Kanye West. Yes, I'm going to talk about Kanye West, the rapper, and his recent tweet that broke the internet. I think you have to be connected to the Kardashians to break the internet somehow. But he's done it. And that's because he tweeted someone called Candace Owens, who is a black intellectual woman who appears on TV a lot, and talks about how the Democrats have made slaves of African Americans, and we're trying to, and the idea is that the blacks now can open their minds and be free of the tyranny of Black Lives Matter and Democrat identity politics. And Kanye West tweeted, "I like the way Candace Owens thinks," and his Twitter account went from 16 million to 23 or something like that. And the African American vote in the weeks that followed increased from about 10% to 16%. Now, this could be a blip, but as a Democrat analyst put it to me, if Trump keeps around 15% of the African American vote, the Democrats will never win again. So it's that significant, particularly in states like Pennsylvania, which are very swing. Right, so I suspect a lot of you may be thinking I'm mad or that I'm probably massively biased in favour of Trump. So I'll give you the reasons why I think he can't win, and I also think these are very significant. The first is the midterms. I have said that there's been a poll dip recently, but the key indicators are that there is a huge blue wave coming. All the special elections in 2017 went the Democrat way. Even in Alabama, the Democrats managed to win, although it didn't help that the Republicans nominated a child rapist. The left is extremely energized. There's this thing called the resistance, which I suppose a reasonable comparison would be Momentum in England. And grassroots left-wing activism is very popular. And connected to that is youth. Young people don't like Trump, and young Republicans don't like Trump. A recent survey showed that 82% of Republican-leaning voters under 24 have said that they would rather someone else, they would rather another Republican challenge Donald Trump for the nomination in 2020. And it's a bizarre flip, really, because older voters don't seem to care about Trump and Stormy Daniels and Trump's lack of decency, but younger voters do. So that's an interesting way in which the Trump presidency has turned everything upside down. The other big factor, of course, the one that everyone talks about, is impeachment. I don't think there was direct collusion with Russia. I don't think Stormy Daniels is a reliable person. But I do think that Mueller has a very, very wide remit. And I think in his attempts to look into the Trump organization, he's bound to uncover some dirt. Some of it could be very scandalous. And if he can successfully present the Trump presidency, or sorry, not the Trump presidency, the Trump organization as a criminal enterprise, that really could shock enough Americans to damage Trump very badly. And the other thing that could happen is war. Every American president at some point has got stuck in the Middle East. Trump has so far not really been stuck in the Middle East, but the recent move in Iran makes it very likely, much more likely, I'd say, he's going to get involved in a war in Syria, or possibly regime change in Iran, which, as we know, is what John Bolton wants. This is very unpopular with working class Americans and middle class Americans, and if he does it, I think he will lose. And the last thing I think will happen is exhaustion. I know I'm exhausted by the Trump presidency, but I think it's possible that a bit like Brexit, people will sort of the populist excitement is fading, and that people are now just getting tired of the constant news mania around Trump. On the other hand, I think that may just be me talking as a journalist, and actually people really quite enjoy it. People do love the drama of the presidency, they love the ups and the downs, and it is entertaining. As Juvenal said, bread and circuses are the two things that people want. Trump gives them economic bread, and he gives them a daily media circus. He really is the greatest show on earth. And that's all I've got to say. Is that, have I spoken for long enough?
Eddie, thank you very much indeed.